Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about What If Deku's impact from Momo's eyes part 1. If you guys enjoy this What If and want to see part 2, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content. And leave a like and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. So let's start the video. The first incident was in Qianquan City, China, with news of the birth of a miraculous child who radiated light. Shortly thereafter, similar phenomena popped up all over the world. The trigger for these newfound powers was never determined. But as time progressed, what was once extraordinary became ordinary. Dreams became reality. Of the planet's population, around 80% have developed unique abilities, or quirks. We have entered a new age, a society of superhuman. In this world whirling in chaos, a certain profession that used to exist only in daydreams has stepped into the limelight, that of the hero. Ever since I first manifested my quirk, I've been told that I would make a great hero. My power is called creation. It's incredibly difficult to use. When I was just a child, I practiced for weeks just to make a simple matryoshka doll. That was my first successful creation, a tiny little wooden Russian nesting doll. After weeks and weeks of failed attempts, that came out gross and made my body feel tired and worn down. To finally see that wooden puppet made me smile with relief. Crazy, happy relief, as Mom ran to tell Dad our little Momo's a genius. You see, they thought I'd never be able to use my quirk properly to do anything. It's too tricky, honey, said Mom, after we got back from the doctor and I'd tried for hours to make anything, come out. My quirk turns lipids from my body into non-living matter. And to make it work, I have to know the exact composition of everything I'm making. The chemicals, the molecules, exactly how they're arranged, the size and shape, the precise molecular structure. The doctor informed me, it'll probably be a long time before you can hope to use that quirk for anything. It's just too tricky for a 4-year-old to use. Sorry to say, miss, but your daughter will probably never be able to rely on her quirk for anything. Everyone in our society has to rely on their quirk. Your quirk is basically who you are. If you can't use your quirk, if it's good for nothing, that's as good as saying you are good for nothing. I'm the daughter of a family with billions in cash. We're considered one of the richest elites. Yaoyorozus, simply put, are not helpless. I've always been good with books and everything in life is simply, to me, a challenge, like a mathematical equation. Being told I could never make good use of my quirk was a foolish thing to say, because I immediately set to doing everything I could to make my power as useful as could be. It's been 10 grueling years of immersing myself in books and science and nothing more. My life is schoolwork and quirk practice, nothing else. There's no room for anything else if I wish to use my quirk properly. And I don't just wish to use my quirk for basic necessities. I want to try it. The hardest profession, the biggest challenge of them all. I am going to become a pro hero. I am going to excel and prove everything ever said about me absolutely wrong. I am one of the students of UA to be admitted on recommendations. That means that I don't have to take the same exam as general applications. It does not mean I don't have to take any test at all. Rather, I have to take an even harder exam against the other recommended students. At the main testing site, there's about 20 other students standing around, all of them the best of the best. There's a huge guy with a buzz cut, a small girl about my age with a lizard-like face and long green hair, a boy with a Glasgow grin, and a boy with hair split down the middle between white and red. A smattering of others, but those are the ones that stand out to me. The test is hosted by the MC voice hero present Mike. The written portion is over. Next up is the practical part. The last is the interview. You'll be in groups of 6 for the practical. Could the numbers we just called proceed to the test site? This group includes the tall guy, the grinning guy, and the boy with half-colored hair. After about half an hour, my number is called. I go in alongside the girl with the jet black hair. Mike holds his hands out over a decorated site. Your test is a 3-kilometer foot race. But this isn't a race that can be finished just by running. Make use of your quirks to reach the goal. Moving fast enough on created wings, I made it to first place in my race course. A few weeks later, the results came to inform me that I had come in first place for all students admitted on recommendation. Suited up, backpack in hand, I was ready for my first day at UA High. When I arrived in our classroom, the place was filled with noise and shouting. Lots of boys, only a few girls. I noticed a boy from the entrance exam was in the seat next to me, my fellow recommendation student, I assumed, and took my place next to him. He, at least, seemed quiet and calm. Everyone else, though, seemed incapable of staying quiet for more than a few seconds. I couldn't help but disapprove. Suddenly, from outside the front door, a gravelly adult's voice was speaking, cutting through the noise. If you're gonna be hunting for buddies, do it elsewhere. I couldn't quite see him through the door, but the tone was that of an instructor. Everyone instantly quieted down. This is the hero department, he continued. It took you lot 8 seconds to quiet down. Life is short, kids. You're all lacking in common sense. At last, he came through the door, and I was in for quite the shock. He wasn't anything like I'd expected our teacher to be. Tall, gaunt, hunchbacked, long-haired and unshaven, dressed all in black except for a white scarf around his neck. "I'm your homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa. Pleasure meeting you." He then held up the iconic UA gym uniform for all of us to see. "Wear this immediately, and meet up at the PE grounds." A quirk apprehension test. One of the louder girls from earlier was asking him, "What about the ceremony and the guidance counseling?" "If you want to be heroes, you don't have time for that," said Mr. Aizawa. "You all understand the school's reputation for freedom on campus. That freedom goes for us teachers too. The softball pitch, the standing long jump, the 50-meter dash, endurance running, grip strength, sustained sideways jumps, upper body exercise, seated to touch. These are all activities you know from middle school, naturally. Physical tests where you were barred from using your quirks. The country still hasn't gotten around to standardizing those sorts of records or keeping track of average performance level." "Well, that's negligence on the part of 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃 Bakugo," he said, turning to a boy who sat a few places in front of me. "How far could you pitch a softball in middle school?" 6-7 meters, the boy answered. "Try using your quirk this time around. As long as you don't exit the circle, anything is fine. Don't hold back." "Got it," he said, winding up to pitch. The end screaming die, as the ball blasted out of his hand with a giant explosion and flying out of sight. Bakugo, I recalled, was the name of the highest-ranked student to get in via the usual test. Perhaps that was why Sensei had chosen him. "Before anything else, one must know what they're capable of," said Sensei, holding up a measuring calculator for all of us to see, showing a distance of 705.2 meters. "This is a rational metric that will form the basis of your hero foundation." "Awesome," cheered a girl with pink hair and skin. "That looks so fun." I rather disapproved of this. The teacher, it seemed, agreed with me, for he turned to her with a frown. "It looks like fun, you say. So you were planning to spend your 3 years here having a good old time. What happened to becoming heroes?" "All right, then. In that case, the student who ranks last in total points will be judged hopeless and instantly expelled. Our freedom means we dispense with students as we please." He gave a strange grin. "Welcome to the hero department." The noisy girl was protesting again. "This is our first day. Even if it wasn't, that's just unfair. Natural disasters, massive accidents, ego-mad villains... All kinds of calamities can happen when we least expect them. The world is full of unfairness. It's our jobs as heroes to reverse it all and restore reason. If you were counting on a friendly chat at the local McDonald's after school, that's too bad. From now on, for the next 3 years, all you can expect from life at UA is one hardship after the next. This is plus ultra. I expect you to overcome these trials and climb to the top. Now then, that was the demonstration. Time to step up to the plate." I found myself smiling a little. The other students looked frightened, but the whole thing seemed clear to me. This statement, in all likelihood, was just a lie designed to bring out their maximum performances. Not that I had intended to bring anything less to the plate. 10 perfect scores later, each accomplished with a special invention: a scooter to speed through the 50-meter dash, a cannon for a ball toss, an automatic gear for a grip strength test, and I watched as the teacher confirmed exactly what I had said before. The whole expulsion thing was a lie. It was a logical ruse to pull out your best performances. My classmates all shrieked in astonishment and I shook my head. "Come on, guys, use your brains." Of course it was just a ruse. Our results were then displayed, and much as I'd expected, I had first-place marks. Second to me was the boy from the entrance exam, Shoto Todoroki, then the blonde boy who had thrown the baseball, Katsuki Bakugo. It seemed I had a definite set of competitors for the top spot in UA, but so far, nobody had really given me much of a challenge. Our day-to-day routine was established quickly. We had normal courses, such as English, in the mornings and hero training in the afternoons. Our first combat training exercise was to be hosted by the #1 hero himself, All Might, dressed in his usual sort of over-the-top uniform and sporting his trademark grin. For the sake of the exercise, we were asked to change into our costumes and meet at ground beta. Costumes in the hero course are designed via submission to the hero records. Students submit their own designs and preferences, and state-of-the-art support companies design the costume according to our specification. Originally, I designed my costume to expose as much possible skin for the sake of convenience for my quirk. The company responded that my original schematic violated the regulations for exposed skin and costumes bill and designed it to be more cumbersome than I had intended. The look is about what I had wanted: red and yellow coloring, a space on the back to hold a dictionary, short skirt-like apparatus, boots and leotard with a slit down the front for my chest and stomach. Still, I can't help but be a little disappointed. Nevertheless, I joined my fellow students, all in their own costumes, and waited for All Might's explanation of the exercise. This will be an indoor battle trial. Villain cleanup is usually seen out in the open, but statistically, the better part of it is an indoor job. Most acts of villainy are committed indoors. Imprisonment, house arrest, the black market. In this hero-saturated society. For this test, you'll separate into villain and hero groups for a 2-on-2 team battle. What about the foundational training? Asked a girl with frog powers. This is foundational training, announced All Might. Only this time, there won't be any robots it'd be okay to just destroy. So, how will we determine wins and losses? I asked, followed by a chorus of other questions. Once everyone got through shouting, All Might explained, for this training, we'll have some villains guard a nuclear weapon they intend on deploying. The heroes must stop them and their nefarious scheme before it's too late. If the heroes capture the villains, or reach the nuclear core before the time runs out, they win. If the villains manage to keep the core the whole time, or capture the heroes, they win. Your teammates and opponents will be chosen by lottery. Is that really how we'll do it? Asked a tall boy with glasses. His friend, the boy with the finger-breaking powers, reassured him. Well, pros are often forced to aim in impromptu team-ups with other heroes they might not know very well, so this is probably testing that. The lots were drawn. I was placed in Team C with a strange little boy who sits in front of me in class, who wears a purple costume. Minute something. His name was placed very low in the quirk apprehension test, if I recall the names correctly. The first two teams called included Midoriya, the boy with the bone-breaking powers, and Uraraka, the girl whose zero-gravity powers, on the heroes' team, with first-place Bakugo and the tall boy with glasses, Ada, on the villains' team. We gathered in an observation room as a class to follow their progress, though we had no audio. The match began with the heroes sneaking in, and Bakugo sneak attacking them. I frowned to myself. Based on their team makeup, it would have been far better to have Ada act as vanguard and Bakugo guard the weapon. Something seemed rather off. That Bakugo's a cheater, cried out the hardening boy, Ijiro Kirishima. An ambush is so unmanly. They are in the heat of battle. After all, All Might told him. Midori actually ducked away from it pretty well, said the acid girl. As we watched, Bakugo charged at Midoriya again, trying the same attack in a row. Midoriya anticipated his move, seized his arm, and tossed him over his head, body slamming him into the ground, though without enough force to have been using his quirk. In spite of myself, I was rather impressed. As the two of them stood up, they both started yelling at each other, though we could not hear what they were saying. From their expressions, it seemed likely that they were in the heat of some sort of emotional confrontation and not thinking rationally. What is he saying? There's no sound through the surveillance footage, asked Kirishima. Teammates can communicate through wireless transceivers, replied All Might. And they all have a rough sketch of the building. And then there's this capture tape. The second someone's wrapped this around their opponent, that's the sign they're captured. The time limit is 15 minutes, and the heroes don't know where the core is being held, right? Asked Ashido. All Might assented. The hero side is at a pretty heavy disadvantage in this scenario, she said, looking awfully concerned. Well, what would be the valor in winning an easy contest? Didn't Aizawa teach you kids our motto? Say it with me now, said All Might. Plus ultra. We all in turn put our fists in the air. The fight continued, with Bakugo changing his trajectory to kick Midoriya instead of punch. Midoriya moved quickly enough to begin wrapping the capture tape around his ankle, still moving quickly and logically, but refusing to use his quirk. He dodged Bakugo's hit again, as if reading his mind and anticipating his move. Look at him go, exclaimed the rest of the class. He hasn't used his quirk once, but he's still going toe-to-toe with the kid who got first place in the entrance exam. He can't keep this up forever. It won't allow him to win in the long run, I thought. Midoriya then ran off, leaving Bakugo to yell after him still. Neither one was making particularly good decisions, in my opinion. Bakugo's anger was obviously clouding his judgment. Midoriya was hesitating too much out of fear, possibly, of overusing his quirk. Upstairs, Uraraka was struggling against Ada, giggling and alerting him to her prescience. Ada had prepared for her, however, by hiding everything in the room she could possibly use as a weapon. I approved, really. He had thought ahead, unlike the others. Bakugo had finally found and cornered Midoriya, and was aiming some kind of massive attack at him from a gauntlet, like a gun. All Might called out, Bakugo, my boy, stop this. You'll kill him. Whatever Bakugo said in response, it seemed to have mollified All Might, because Bakugo then unleashed a giant explosion against Midoriya that destroyed half the building. You're not bothering to roleplay, Bakugo, you're destroying your own stronghold. That's foolish. This is supposed to be a lesson. Kirishima was calling out. Midoriya. The smoke cleared and we could see Midoriya was still alive, but singed. Sensei, please put a stop to this. That Bakugo kid's gone mental. At this rate, he'll kill him. No, said All Might, but he seemed to have considered some of Kirishima's words, as he said into the mic, Bakugo, my boy, if you shoot another blast like that, I'll end the exercise forcibly and you will lose. Launching an attack with such an extensive damage radius while indoors defeats the purpose of protecting your stronghold. It doesn't matter if you're a hero or a villain. That was just foolish. Once more and you'll earn yourself massive demerits. Well said, Sensei. Bakugo seemed to have listened, because he jumped forward and aimed another blast at Midoriya. However, instead of hitting him head-on, he blasted out behind him and hit him in the back with a blast. Todoroki, my fellow recommendation student, was saying he deliberately misled his opponent and used his explosion ability to redirect his midair trajectory to his advantage. You wouldn't think him the clever type looking at him, but those were some subtle motor skills. Landing a telling blow while resisting inertia at the same time means he must be able to adjust his explosion power finely, I said, agreeing with his analysis. Can't say I like him, but the kid's got talent, mused Kaminari, a blonde boy with explosion powers. As we watched, Bakugo continued to beat the crap out of Midoriya, his actions becoming more and more petty and violent. This is just torture, said Kirishima. It's clear he's already captured him. That's not the behavior of a hero, agreed Tokoyami, a boy with a bird head. Midoriya was running away now, headed towards the opposite end of the room. The two kept on shouting, then suddenly aimed their biggest attacks straight at one another, as if about to blow out everything. Sir, that's enough already. Kirishima was pleading, almost begging All Might. Sir, attention, both teams. All Might was saying since he was stopped then, as Midoriya aimed his punch not at Bakugo, but at the ceiling. The ceiling broke open and Uraraka suddenly had enough weapons to use against the nuke. She batted them at Ada, jumped into the air, and seized the device, successfully completing the exercise. The hero team wins, shouted All Might, as Midoriya and Uraraka collapsed in pain. The losing team is fairly uninjured, but the winning team has collapsed, mused Kaminari. In other words, they lost the scuffle, but won the war, concluded Tokoyami. A little while later, Bakugo, Uraraka, and Ada were gathered in the monitor room for a review of their performances. I had thought them over a great deal ... and it was clear to me that I'd say the best in this match ... was young, said All Might, completing my thought. But weren't the winners Ochako and Midoriya? Asked Tsuyuasui, a girl with frog powers, looking perplexed. I wonder why I would say that, said All Might, rather cheekily. Who knows why? I can tell you why, I said immediately. It's because Ada was the one who adapted the most to the situation. Having watched the fight, Bakugo's behavior was clearly driven by some personal grudge, and thus totally arbitrary. Furthermore, as you said, Sensei, a large range attack in an indoor arena is just foolish. The same reasoning goes for Midoriya. Uraraka lost focus halfway through, and her final attack was too reckless. If she'd treated the dummy weapon as if it were real, she'd never have launched such a large-scale attack. Ada was fully prepared for his opponent's arrival. He had a counter-strategy, and never lost sight of his mission to protect the dummy weapon. Technically, the hero team won, yes, but they took advantage of the fact that this was training, and didn't respect the spirit of the trial. Everyone stared at me in silence for a moment, including the teacher. After a moment, All Might said, well, young Ada might have been a bit too stiff, but correct. We should always start with the basics and devote ourselves wholeheartedly to learning, I said, glad for once to have the floor. That's the only way to become top pros. All Might called out the next match. Todoroki and the duplicate arms boy Mizo Shoji against the tail boy, Ajiro, and invisible girl, Hagakure. This match seemed a little unbalanced in the hero team's favor. Ajiro and Hagakure's best bet would be to avoid any contact with surfaces, in order to avoid being frozen. As we watched, Hagakure stripped to sneak up on them and left Ajiro to guard the weapon. It was quite clear then what would happen. Todoroki effortlessly froze up the entire building, locking Ajiro and Hagakure to the ground and securing the weapon all on his own. He made sure his comrade didn't get caught in the attack, and he refrained from damaging the core. He even weakened his enemy's position. He's something else, this one, said All Might. With all that buildup, I was starting to feel a little nervous. I would have to do something impressive to show that I was, in fact, better than this, my fellow student of recommendation. My teammate and I were on the villain team, and our opponents were Kaminari and Kyokajiru, a girl with earphone jacks that hung from her lobes. Both had placed low on Mr. Aizawa's test, but both were formidable opponents. I had quickly created thermoconductive shoe coverings for myself and my partner to cancel out Kaminari's electricity, and headphones to avoid any noise-based attack Jiru might supply. The other villain teams all made the mistake of splitting up and letting a single vanguard fighter take on the hero team. I told Minta as I began sealing off the door by creating non-thermoconductive bars. We will stay together, so as to avoid those mistakes. We'll be together, he said, in a tone of voice that distinctly sounded less than focused on the task at hand, and more on the implications of together. I turned to glare at him. He was looking at my breasts. Pay attention to the task at hand, I told him. Your quirk allows you to create sticky balls from your head, correct? You want to know about my balls? Are they electroconductive? Wah. Oh, no. Then cover the ground with them. That way we can avoid being electrocuted. He was still looking at my breasts, but he did what I said. I was pretty sure I'd covered all my bases. Just as he'd finished laying out the trap, the ground started buzzing and sparking. Clearly 𝗵𝗲 was releasing his electricity throughout the building. They had acted as I'd anticipated. During the test, 𝗵𝗲 showed that he had limits for his powers. I mused. It occurred to me that 𝗔𝗫 could probably overhear us with her quirk, so I couldn't talk about my scheme aloud. I turned to look at 𝗵𝗲, hoping to figure out some way to communicate with him, only to see that he'd been electrocuted thanks to standing on the bare floor without wearing his electroconductors. I almost cried out, but remembered 𝗔𝗫. Even if I was now on my own, 𝗵𝗲's quirk limit meant that he'd lose his ability to pay attention or use his brain once he used too much electricity. It would come down to a one-on-one between me and 𝗔𝗫. I quickly put on my headphones in order to avoid any follow-up attack from 𝗔𝗫, and kept my eyes on the door. I had to be prepared to fight. I felt a vibration pulsing through the building, and saw my guards to the door vibrating out of their place. 𝗔𝗫's vibration quirk. I should have reinforced them more, I reprimanded myself. 𝗔𝗫 was standing in the doorway. Though as I had predicted, 𝗵𝗲 had lost his wits, he was standing behind 𝗔𝗫 and gesturing wildly. So me versus 𝗔𝗫. I could still feel the ground vibrating as she was facing me. She looked hesitant, though, as if she wasn't sure what to do. Time to fight. A metal staff emerged from my thigh. 𝗔𝗫 slammed her FSDS to the ground, clearly about to blow it up. My voice muted through the earphones. I said, "Can you really afford to displace the nuclear weapon, hero? You can't be so desperate as to take out both yourself, your partner, and the villains you are supposed to be apprehending." She stopped, looking irritated. She was stepping carefully, avoiding 𝗵𝗲's sticky trap, and started moving over to the side of the wall. She extended her earphone jack into the side of her boot, and I realized 2 seconds too late that she was aiming a sound blast at me from a direction that wouldn't hit the weapon. I tried to move, but I had to be careful to avoid stepping on the trap, and the sound wave hit me at full force. Without the headphones, I probably would have been knocked out. As I was recovering my equilibrium, 𝗔𝗫 was sprinting towards the nuke. I had to act fast. I created a net, aimed it, and trapped her, tripping and encircling her as she hit the ground and stuck to the trap. 𝗵𝗲 had already tripped onto 𝗵𝗲's trap and was struggling to get himself free. I walked over 𝗔𝗫 and wrapped the capture tape around her leg, then over to 𝗵𝗲 to do the same. Both heroes were judged captured. My team had won. "Well done, everyone," said 𝗬𝗍, before launching into our performance evaluations. 𝗵𝗲 was criticized. Fortunately, for his lack of focus. He reprimanded me for failing to look after my partner, though, which I thought was a little unfair. I was supposed to be playing the villain, wasn't I? Villains usually don't have much concern for their partner's well-being. 𝗵𝗲 was reprimanded for overusing his quirk too early, despite knowing the consequences, and 𝗔𝗫 for failing to coordinate with her partner. However, they were both praised for hard work as well. I felt hopeful that I'd been able to live up to the expectations of the others. After a few more matches, the battle trial was finished. 𝗬𝗍 said, "Good work, everyone." Apart from young Midoriya, there were no big injuries. Nevertheless, no holds were barred. "For your first exercise, you all did wonderfully. Such an honest lesson right after Mr. Aizawa's is kinda anticlimactic if you ask me," said Asui. "We're free to hold straightforward classes if we wish," said 𝗬𝗍 brightly. Change and returned to the classroom. He was gone like a streak of lightning, and we were all left to disperse back for afternoon courses with Mr. Aizawa. Much to my annoyance, all anyone was talking about was Midoriya and Todoroki's performances. The class was gushing about that first match all afternoon, and had very little to say to me. A straightforward, quickly ended match is less memorable than a wild fight, I suppose. The news that 𝗬𝗍 was teaching at UA made the whole country get excited and disruptive. Consequently, the mass media were pressing at the gates for days on end for a scoop. It made it quite difficult to try and get in the front doors for class. The day after our combat training, we were back in our homeroom class with Mr. Aizawa. "Hope you're rested from yesterday's battle trial. I took the liberty of looking at your marks and evaluation," he said, before launching into a speech telling each of us what we'd done wrong about the same lecture 𝗬𝗍 had given. Once he'd wrapped up that, "Now, let's get on with the homeroom notices. I'm sorry to spring this on you all, but what now? Another test. We need to pick a class president. Finally, something school-like." It felt like everyone was thinking that together now. Everyone collectively jumped to their feet to volunteer for the role. I was quick to add my vote, because this role, the class representative, this was a role built for me. If this was just a normal school, then being class rep would just be a lot of paperwork. But here, in the hero course, it's more like guiding the group, a position that will build up your hero foundation all the faster. Of course everyone wanted to do it. But everyone in our class was jumping up and down and making lots of noise, instead of conducting the election in an orderly fashion. Be quiet, everyone, said 𝗧𝗓𝗧. This is a task laden with responsibility, where you must carry and pull everyone else's weight. It's a holy office that requires the esteem and trust of everyone else in class. The only truly worthy leader will emerge from a democratic choice, reflecting the will of the people, which is why this must be settled by a vote. It's still too early to have developed any trust in each other, said 𝐴sui. And everyone will just vote for themselves, added Kirishima. And that's precisely why the person who does manage to earn multiple votes will be the truly appropriate person for the job. No, said 𝗧𝗓𝗧. He did make a good point there. Is that all right, sensei? He said, turning to Mr. Aizawa. As long as you all decide by the deadline. Anything's fine, said Mr. Aizawa, going to sleep in his old sleeping bag. After we'd all cast our votes, the results were displayed on the board. I'd received a mysterious vote besides my own, a total of 2, and come in second, right after a shocked-looking Izuku Midoriya. How did I get 3 votes? He stammered out. You gotta be kidding me. Who voted for Deku? Yelled Bakugo. Well, guess we know it wasn't you, snarked Zero. Ida was looking really upset. 0 votes. I see how it is. Of course, since I insisted on the sacredness of the role. You voted for somebody else, I asked, baffled by whatever Ida was trying to do, even though you wanted the job so badly. What are you doing, Ida? Asked Sato. So then, said Mr. Aizawa, coming out of his nap, it's President Midoriya and Vice President Yaoyorozu. We stood in front of the classroom. Midoriya looked really nervous and sweaty, like a terrified kicked mouse, and I couldn't fathom how I'd somehow received fewer votes than he had. Well, said Kirishima, Midoriya was real fired up during our combat training. And Yaoyorozu was real cool during the training analysis, added Kaminari. Maybe this won't be so bad. After all I'd done, to still end up as nothing but deputy class representative. I couldn't help resenting him. Lunch that day was interrupted by a security breach, which caused the whole cafeteria to stampede for the doorway. I almost got trampled, until Ida suddenly rose from the crowd, as if he was flying on an invisible string. Later on, we found out that he'd had Uraraka float him. Using his engines, he blasted himself to the doorway, standing on the emergency exit sign, and, glasses fallen away, addressed the crowd. Everybody, calm down. It's okay. It's just the press. There's nothing to panic about. It's okay. You're at UA. Let's conduct ourselves in the manner of those enrolled at the highest academia. Everyone calmed down, and the crowd dispersed. The police arrived, and the reporters withdrew, and we all returned to Class 1A. All right, President, I said to Midoriya as we stood, preparing to start the lesson. Start us off. We're supposed to decide who our other class officers will be, but first, I need to say something, he said, still shaking a bit, like uncertain of his own words. I've thought a lot about this, and I think that Tenya Ida should be our class rep. He was able to get the whole crowd to calm down, and I think that makes him the right choice for the job. Yeah, he's got a point, said Kirishima, grinning and looking real satisfied. Ida made a great showing back there at the lunchroom. I wouldn't have minded Midoriya either, of course, he added, apologetically. He looked like the guy on the emergency exit sign, said Kaminari, and the two of them both grinned. Whatever, just get on with it already, growled Mr. Aizawa from inside his sleeping bag. Time is wasting. If it's the wish of the class rep, said Ida, then I can't refuse. Do us proud, emergency exit, cheered Kirishima. Emergency exit Ida. Don't let us down, said Kaminari. Everyone was pretty much on board. And just like that, Ida became our class rep. Even though I had received 2 more votes than him, even though I had at least one other person's support and approval. Well, he had Midoriya's, I supposed. Midoriya had certainly managed to win the class's hearts, and I couldn't for the life of me figure out why. 12:50 p.m. the next day. With all that decided, Mr. Aizawa was ready to begin our hero studies. For the foundational heroic skills we'll study today, it was decided you'll be supervised by a 3-man team consisting of me, All Might, and one other teacher. Sensei, asked Zero, what'll we be doing? Mr. Aizawa raised up a small card labeled Rescue. Rescue training. To be the hero everyone needs, whether for a flood or any other disaster. Rescue training sounds right up my alley, said Kaminari. Totally, gushed Ishido, fist pumping. This is what a hero's whole job is, said Kirishima, getting all pumped. I'm chomping at the bit. If it's a flood, then that environment's my speciality. Kiro, added 𝐴sui. Don't get ahead of yourselves, said Mr. Aizawa, killing the mood. As I was saying, this time it's entirely up to each of you whether or not you wear your costume. Some of your costumes probably aren't adapted to the task at hand. After all, the training area is fairly far away, so we'll get there by bus. That's all. Go get prepared. Everyone got changed and headed out to the bus with 𝐻𝐻𝐫 giving us orders as our new rep. In order to get everyone seated smoothly on the bus, file into 2 lines according to your numbers, he yelled, blowing a whistle and swaying his hand back and forth. Unfortunately for 𝐻𝐻𝐫, the bus's open layout ruined by boarding strategy, moaned 𝐻𝐻𝐫. I'd sat down in the back seat next to 𝐒𝐿𝐴𝐺𝐸 and could see the others sitting in the open part of the bus. So there was really no point. Huh, said Ashido patting 𝐻𝐻𝐫's shoulder. Hey, Midoriya, said Asui out of nowhere, and he jumped. I always say what I think, no matter what's on my mind. He was looking really nervous now. Hi, Asui. Call me Tsuyu. Your quirk reminds me of 𝗲𝗋𝐻𝑖. He looked seriously freaked out. That's so. Haha, but mine isn't like. Wait up, Asui, said Kirishima. 𝗲𝗋𝐻𝑖 doesn't hurt himself. That's where the likeness ends. I'm kinda jealous of that simple, enhancer-type quirk. There's a lot you can do with one, and flashily too. My hardening power isn't bad for a fight, but I hate that it's just not that flashy. He demonstrated a bit by hardening up his forearm. Midoriya said, well, I think it's an awesome quirk. Definitely useful for a pro. But you know, heroics has a lot about it that can be more like a popularity contest, too, said Kirishima, looking down. Opposite them, Aoyama said my naval laser is both flashy and strong enough for the pro level. But it's way lame if it gives you a stomachache, honey, said Ashido. Well, if anyone in our class has pro quirks, it's Todoroki and Bakugo, said Kirishima, looking over at the back seat. Todoroki was asleep perpendicular to me, and Bakugo just looked annoyed as usual and turned away with an irritable scoff. Bakugo's always fuming, though, Asui corrected Kirishima, so he won't be popular. You frog face, yelled Bakugo, instantly mad and jumping out of his seat. Come over here and say that to my face. See, said Asui, pointing at him. Kaminari laid on, it's only been a little while since we met you, but we've already been made addictively cognizant of your personality, redolent as it is of a tired getting steamed in a sewer. Bakugo started yelling at him. What kind of vocabulary is that? I'll fucking kill you. I was disgusted. What a vulgar conversation, I said, putting my hand to my mouth to express it all. Yeah, but they make me laugh, smiled Uraraka. Damn, Bakugo, you are one foul-mouthed dude. The argument continued for a few more minutes, until almost there, settle down already, came Mr. Aizawa's reprimand from the front seat. Yes, sir. We chorused back at him. Only a few minutes later, and the bus stopped outside a big circular building with reflective panels all over. Inside, we found a huge theme set of mock areas, like a theme park attraction, like USJ or something. A shipwreck, a landslide, a fire, etc., said a mic-fied voice I remembered hearing dozens of times on TV. This is a practical training area I created to simulate all kinds of accidents and disasters, and its name is the Unforeseen Simulation Joint. So it really is USJ, was the first thought, but the second was about the tall pro hero in a spacesuit standing in front of us, who we all knew as the Space Hero 13, said Midoriya, the chivalrous pro who does phenomenal work helping with disaster relief. Wow, I've always liked 13, cheered Uraraka. Mr. Aizawa mumbled something to 13, as we all gathered around and got ready for the day ahead. Okay, well, shall we? He said, apparently satisfied with 13's reply. Before we begin, said 13, holding up fingers as they spoke, just one thing, or 2 or 3 or 4. We get it. I'm certain you're all already quite aware, but my quirk is called Black Hole. No matter what material gets sucked into its vortex, it will turn to dust. That's a quirk that's perfect for removing wreckage and saving people injured by disasters, cheered Midoriya. Yes, said 13, and a sinister note suddenly came into their voice. However, it is a power that could also easily be used to kill people, and in that way, it's no different from the quirks of everyone here. Naturally, in this society of superhumans, quirks are strictly regulated, and the requirements for their lawful use enforced. We can tell at a glance that that is the makeup of this world. That being said, please don't forget that each of you possesses a quirk that can go awry. One wrong step is all it takes to kill someone else by accident. During Mr. Aizawa's strength test, you learned your power's true potential, and during All Might's battle training, I think you took away a true sense of the danger of brandishing those powers against each other. This lesson will serve as a fresh start. Let's get to studying about how to wield our quirks for the sake of human life. Your quirks do not exist to hurt others. Please leave this exercise having fully understood that your quirks exist to help people. They're so cool, I thought, alongside the rest of the class. That is all. You have my gratitude for listening so intently and patiently. 13 concluded with a bow. All right, first things first, said Mr. Aizawa, but before he could finish what he was saying, something seemed to catch his eye. Far away, by the fountain near USJ's play, some kind of black, swirling mist had appeared out of nowhere, growing larger and larger. Suddenly, a hand came through the mist, as if it were a portal, and a face appeared within ... or not a face. A guy with scraggly hair and a severed hand, covering most of his face and exposing a single, scarlet, bloodshot eye. "Huddle together and don't move," said Mr. Aizawa. 13. Protect the students. "What is that?" said Kirishima, as he looked down as a cascade of strangers swept in through the mist. "Is this like that training pattern at the entrance exam?" "Don't move," said Mr. Aizawa. His tone was dead serious. "These are villains." There they were, right in the midst of our rescue training. The villains who pros did battle with. The giant Miss Guy who'd brought them inside was saying Eraserhead and number 13. According to the teacher's curriculum we proceed yesterday, All Might was supposed to be here, and yet, I knew it. "That was you yesterday," said Mr. Aizawa. "Whereas he ... we went through all this trouble and rustled up so many of us to bring along ... You can't tell me All Might, the symbol of peace, isn't here." The hand guy was hissing. "I wonder if he'll show up, if we kill some of these her kids." What we faced that day was an evil we could never have suspected. The symbol of peace must die. Villains? No way. What kind of numbskull could think honest-to-goodness villains would be able to just waltz into the hero home base? Said Kaminari. "Sensei," I asked, "what about the intruder alarm sensors?" "Of course we have some set up," said 13, "but is this the only campus they've infiltrated? Or are they attacking all the others too?" Said Todoroki, remaining calm and rational. "At any rate, if the sensors aren't responding, that just means they must have one amongst their number who has a quirk that can do that. An isolated space away from the school building. At a time when there's a class scheduled ... It may seem out of the question, but they must have some solid objective. This isn't an ambush without some carefully planned scheme behind it." "Number 13, said Mr. Aizawa, "do the evacuation procedure and try calling the school. These villains know how to get around the sensors. There's a chance there's an electrowave type who'll try interfering." "Kaminari, you too. Try contacting UA with your quirk." "Sensei," cried Midoriya, "are you gonna fight them alone? Even if you surprise all of their quirks, there's so many of them." The battle style of Eraserhead is to capture villains after erasing their quirks, meaning the main battle starts now. Mr. Aizawa turned back to him, his goggles now on. A hero always has more than one trick up their sleeves. 13, I'm counting on you. With that, he kept down the dias and went straight to the villains. Within seconds, he'd taken out at least 5, like a real, pro. Meanwhile, 13 was evacuating our class as we followed them to the front door. Just as we were headed to evacuate though ... the black mist guy sprung up in front of us, like a barrier to the doorway. "I'm afraid I can't allow that," he hissed in a deep, dark, scary voice. "Greetings. We are the League of Villains. I apologize for the presumption, but we took it upon ourselves to enter UA, this school of heroes, in order to engage with All Might, the symbol of peace. We were hoping to get the opportunity to extinguish him, you see. Wasn't All Might meant to be in attendance right now? Has something been altered?" "Well, setting that aside, this is my role," he said, and suddenly the black mist was moving, surrounding us all. Kirishima and Bakugo went flying straight at the mist guy to punch him, like two impulsive idiots. They actually landed a hit on him, too. "Bet you didn't think we'd be able to do you in before you go the chance," said Kirishima. "That was close," murmured the mist guy. "To be expected. To you may be mere students. You are also the hero world's golden eggs. It's no use, just run," shouted 13. "Run, you two." The mist surrounded us again, and the voice echoed, "You will be scattered and tortured to death." The noise resounded all around us. I was standing between Jiro and Kaminari, and threw my hand in front of them to create a shield. Before we knew it, the three of us had been deposited into the mountain zone and were surrounded by dozens and dozens of villains. Before they could move, I stood up and pulled a sword from my wrist, while generating another for Jiro from my thigh. She understood immediately what I needed her to do, and grabbed the sword to hold. The three of us, together, then, would have to hold them off. Screamed Kaminari, barely dodging a villain who jumped at him. "That was close. Holy crap, I saw death's door. Who the heck are these guys? What the hell's going on?" Jiro and me both had weapons at the ready, while I tried to think of a strategy. Kaminari's yelling was distracting. "Let's worry about the specifics later," Jiro told him. "Right now, we need to focus on how to get out from under them," I said. "Wait, aren't you an electric kid?" Jiro asked Kaminari, struck with a sudden thought. "Just fry them already." "Hey, didn't you see when we were teamed up during the battle trial?" demanded Kaminari. "I can only wear lightning. I can discharge some, but I can't control it. Do you two want to get blasted too? I need a weapon too. I'm trying to call for help, but it's being jammed like crazy. Do you two hear me? You won't be able to rely on me right now. I'm relying on you too. You're a real damsel in distress, aren't you?" said Jiro. "All right then, be our human stun gun," she announced, kicking him into the villains coming our way. "What are you doing, idiot?" he asked as he flew into them. Then he hit the guy and zapped him. "Ah, he's a conductor. I'm really strong, aren't I? All right, you two, you can count on me." "What a lightweight," J.ro muttered, deeply annoyed. The villains appeared, tossing giant rocks at Kaminari. "Don't screw around, you little shits," they snarled, but then I intercepted them with a net. "You two, seriously," I called out, annoyed with their bickering. "My bad," said J.ro. I thought of a decent plan, but Kaminari. She stuck her jacks into her boots and blasted out as much sound energy as she could. "I wrote the costume guys to give mine a feature where you can direct the attack in a specific direction," she announced, counteracting a swing of a sword. "I'm ready," I called at her. I knelt down on the ground right next to J.ro and activated my creation. "It takes me some time to make something this big," I called out, and the giant metal sheet emerged from my back, covering the two of us. "A sheet? Is it meant to be a shield?" called the villains' voices, muffled from inside the sheet. "You're looking at a 100mm insulator sheet," I murmured. "Kaminari, it's your turn." "I getcha," he called. "Now I can be really strong." From outside the sheet, we could hear the sounds of electricity unleashing and zapping everyone around us. Underneath that sheet, we were untouchable. "Now then," I said, pushing up the sheet after a few moments of silence. "I'm worried about the rest. Let's hurry and join back up with them." The entire front of my shirt had come undone from the action, and J.ro was looking embarrassed. You've got a pretty big tear in your shirt," she stammered out. "I'll make another," I said, with perfect unconcern. As we got out from under the shield, we saw that Kaminari had fried his brain again. As we gathered our wits, however, there was something that none of us noticed. "Hands up, and don't even think about using your quirks." One villain who had escaped the attack had grabbed Kaminari by the collar and was holding a hand by his head, prepared to kill him at a thought. "The second you do, this kid gets it." "Kaminari," I cried. "Damn, he got us," said J.ro. We completely let our guard down. The villain's hand, the one not holding Kaminari's collar, was sparkling with danger, and Kaminari was too brain-fried to do anything about it. "As a fellow electricity user," said the villain, "I don't want to kill him, but if this is how it's gotta be, then there's no helping it." "A surprise ambush after leading us to believe we'd wiped out everyone," said J.ro. "To think something like that never occurred to me. I'd been careless, really." "I'm an electricity user," I said, thinking it through quickly. "You must be the one Todoroki was talking about. The one who's interfering with the transmission." J.ro was talking suddenly. "Damn, you and Kaminari ... You damn electricity types are just born in the League of Winning Powers, aren't you?" "What are you doing?" I asked her, trying not to freak out. "I mean," she said, "there are plenty of jobs available to you, even outside of the hero business, and you're always in such high demand. Just out of pure curiosity, why did you choose to be a villain?" "Now I see," I thought, watching as J.ro's headphone jack snaked down her back, out of the villain's notice. J.ro can use her plug for a no-motion attack, if only she can successfully connect it. He placed his hand near Kaminari's head again. "Did you think I wouldn't notice?" he said, in a sinister growl. "Only an idiot would fall for some teenager's dumb tricks. Wasn't anything to do about it." She pulled her jack back. "Don't neglect the hostage, little hero eggs. If you don't resist, I'll let this cretin go free. Choose now. It's your lives or his. Don't move." He was advancing and we were stuck. What could I do? How to get out of this? What's the right answer? What? Cried out the villain as two bullets pierced his shoulders, from the direction of the USJ's doorway. We turned to look at the door. There they were, coming en masse. Later on, we learned what had happened. Ida had broken free of the USJ and run to the school to get them. The pros, the UA teachers. In mere minutes, they'd dispatched the villains. Although the leaders got away ... we were saved. J.ro tied the villain up with her earphone jacks, while I checked on Kaminari. This was the realm where pros battle. Their world. This was an experience none of us were ready for. In the aftermath, our whole class, sans Midoriya who'd been injured again, gathered to see the police. 16, 17, 18 ... not counting the kid with the broken legs. "Everyone's pretty much unharmed," said the lead officer. Everyone was talking nervously about whatever had happened to them. "For the time being," said the officer, "you all need to head back to the classroom. We can't just go straight into police questioning." "Naturally." "Hey, sir," asked Usui, "how is Mr. Aizawa?" "His arms are riddled with commented fractures and he's suffering from facial fractures. Thankfully, out of sheer luck, he didn't receive any brain damage. It's just ... well, the bones around his eye sockets, his orbital floor, have been crushed. There's a chance it might adversely affect his eyesight. Or so I've been told." "What about 13? asked Ishido. "I fear their upper arms have sustained serious lacerations. That being said, their vitals appear to be stable. The same goes for All Might ... He's not in critical condition either. He's being brought to the infirmary to be given adequate treatment by Recovery Girl." "And Deku?" asked Uraraka. "How's Midoriya?" said Ida. "Midoriya, oh, he seems he's fit for the infirmary too. I have business to attend to there as well." The police officer turned to his second-in-command. Sansa, you see to the rest. The principal said we have to focus on fortifying our security across the board. That was our first encounter with the true evil of villainy, but it was not to be our last. Even in that year, the next day, school was temporarily closed, but to be honest, we hardly knew how to get over what had happened. And then, all right, listen, announced Ida. It's time for this morning's homeroom period. Take your seats, everyone. We are in our seats, said 𝗧𝗪. You're the one who's not. The door opened and Mr. Aizawa came in, covered in bandages. Morning, class. Mr. Aizawa, you're already back. We all cried out. Sensei, you're all right, asked Ida. Can you really call that okay? Said Uraraka. Don't worry about me. After all, the battle hasn't really ended for you yet. More villains. The UA Sports Festival is approaching. Oh yeah, this is a school. Wait, hold up, said 𝗵𝗃. That sounds like something villains would try to infiltrate. Will it be okay? What a cowardly statement. Don't you know what the sports festival is? On the contrary, replied Mr. Aizawa. Since we're going ahead with the festival, it means the school is confident it has its ducks in a row when it comes to crisis control now. I hear police presence will be 5 times bigger than normal, for example. What you should be thinking about is what a huge chance the sports festival presents for you all. This isn't some event that'll be brought to a halt by the likes of villains. Why not? Said 𝗵𝗃. It's just a sports festival, 𝗵𝗃, said Midoriya, staring at 𝗵𝗃 incredulously. Have you never seen the UA Sports Festival? Of course I have. That's not it. He pouted. Aizawa-sensei continued. Our sports festival is one of Japan's biggest events. Long ago, the Olympics was the sports festival that whipped the nation into a froth of enthusiasm. But now the extent and population have shrunk and it's lost a lot of substance. So what has taken the place of the Olympics in Japan is the UA Sports Festival. The country's top heroes are all sure to be watching us, I reminded the purple boy. It's because they'll be scouting for us. I'm thinking I might follow the tactic of going sidekick for a pro heroes squad after graduating, said Kaminari. But there are loads of people who get stuck as sidekicks forever and miss their chance to break out as solo heroes, replied Jiru. And you seem just that kind of dumbass, Kaminari. Naturally, said Mr. Aizawa. Entering a famous hero team will get you higher status and more experience. Remember, time is limited. If you get noticed by a pro, that gives you the standing for a brighter future than otherwise. This is the chance you'll only get once a year, for a total of 3. If you're aiming to be a hero, this is an event you can't overlook. With that announcement, it was time for proper classes to begin that day, and we were left contemplating our future opportunity. Jiru-chan seemed very nervous, and I spent some time that week consoling her. Personally, I was getting rather excited for what was to come. Everyone, are your preparations complete? Cried Ida. We're set to enter very soon. Our class was gathered together in the waiting room of the stadium. As everyone was gathering their wits and preparing to leave, Midoriya, said Todoroki, walking straight up to him. What is it, Todoroki? On an objective basis, I think I'm above you in terms of practical strength. He looked surprised, confused. Yeah, you've managed to get All Might's eyes on your right, asked Todoroki. I'm not prying into that, but I'm going to beat you. What's with this belligerence all of a sudden? Asked Kirishima, grabbing his shoulder. He shrugged him off. Don't spring this on him right before I'm not here to play nice and make friends. Todoroki snapped at him, but whatever. I have no idea what you want from me, said Midoriya, telling me all that. You're definitely stronger than me. In fact, you probably have more potential than anyone in the hero course, looking at it objectively. Come on, Midoriya, said Kirishima, don't be so negative. Even so, Midoriya interrupted, or rather continued. Everyone, even kids from other departments, are aiming for the top with everything they've got. Something had changed in him now. This wasn't self-deprecation or false modesty. No. This was something else. He looked up to meet my gaze, and there was no wavering now. So I can't let myself lag behind. I'll be aiming for the top too. Oh, said Todoroki. Present Mike's voice boomed out as we walked into the ring. Let me guess, you all came to see them, right? The fresh-formed miracle stars that shrugged off a mass villain assault with wills of steel. The Hero Department Freshman Class 1A. The venue for the UA Sports Festival was a gigantic, glittering arena, a circular stadium with seating for cheering thousands and a broadcast geared worldwide. Our fellow students joined us, class by class, until the entire freshman year stood before the podium. Now, fair play, announced the referee for our year, our teacher, the R-rated hero Midnight, once everyone had gathered. After she'd rung us in, she called, now, for your player representative, Katsuki Bakugo of Class 1A. We all stared at Bakugo as he headed up to the podium, looking like he was about to explode. Sensei, I'm gonna place first. A massive angry boo of dissent came from the freshman crowd. Everyone was annoyed with Bakugo's words and looking at our class as if he spoke for each and every one of us. In response, he said, "You'll all make fantastic stepping stones, I'm sure." Midnight said, "Aye, right. With that we can move directly onto our first event, onto the preliminaries as they're called. Lots of fine folk end up choking on their tears here every year, and this year's first round is." She pointed to a screen, and the words came up. "Obstacle race this. It's a race between all 11 classes. The course makes a nearly 4 kilometers ring around this stadium. We always sing about our freedom on campus. Well, this is what it's all about. You're free to do anything, so long as you remain within the course. So let's get cracking. On your marks." Everyone took their stance, headed for the gate. The buzzer rang. Start. Immediately, the gates out of the arena crushed half the students inside their walls. And before we could be crushed, ice began to encase everyone. Todoroki. It wasn't hard for me to evade his trap with a simple wrist jump. "You'll have to try harder than that, Todoroki," I called. He turned to face me. "I ain't buying your bluff, Todoroki," shouted 𝗵𝗃, my classmate with the sticky ball quirk. "Now why don't you swallow my killer move?" Grapefruit with a loud bang, he was swatted away and rolled across the ground. I skated to a stop in front of a near army of robots that towered over us students, a seemingly impenetrable barrier. "A Robo Inferno," shouted Present Mike's voice over the loudspeakers. "It's the villain bot that was worth 0 points in the entrance exam. Where do they get the funding for all of this?" I asked. Todoroki went blasting through the robots in a near instant. It was time to show what I was made of. Mike's commentary boomed out some more. "The first round's obstacle course is underway, and the goal is to run 1 lap around this special-made stadium's outer ring. The rules are simple and savage. Aside from leaving the course, this is a bona fide race where everything goes. The camera bots installed in each area can barely contain their excitement." As I was working on creating the ideal weapon to end the robots, my classmates were forging on ahead of me, busting through the obstacles in front of them without hesitation. As expected of 𝗧𝗪 who've made it past, lots are from Class A. Came more commentary as my creation completed. "It's not that the other departments of Class B aren't any good," said Mr. Aizawa's voice. "It's just that Class A's learned not to hesitate. They've seen what the real world holds, and they've come to know what it is to be instilled with true fear. They coped and made it out in one piece, and now their experience has become a source of encouragement, drowning out their doubt and hesitation. You haven't seen anything yet." The cannon was fully completed, taken aim, and the cannonball hit the targets, the robots toppling, and a path opened up for me and everyone around me. As I reached the other side, well then, if the first barrier was a cinch, what do you think of the second? You fall and you're out. If you don't like that idea, maybe you can crawl. It's the FALLL. It's true that they're encouraged to take the bull by the horn in any number of ways, right, Eraserhead? "What are those idiots doing just standing around?" came the musing voice of our sense in response. A few creations made it easy to get across the fall, though I was starting to wonder if I had enough reserves for this. The players in the lead are separated from those bunched up behind, but won't say how many are pulling odd, so don't get complacent and keep going forward. And now we come to the hidden final barrier. Its true form is none other than the minefield. It's set up so that if you look carefully, you can see where the landmines are. Strain your eyes and feet. In any case, they're landmines. Not overly lethal, but they bang big and bright. As I picked my way across the minefield, trying to think up a strategy, a shout from behind me told me that Minoru Minda had jumped at me. Before I could react, he'd landed stuck with his quirk on my back. Then from behind us came an explosion. One far bigger than any I'd heard before. From the small mines, or from Bakugo, a gigantic blast of energy like a bomb had gone off. A giant explosion near HD entrance. Why was that bang so big? Was it his plan or sheer coincidence? Class A's Midoriya mounts his charge using shock waves, Mike cried. As I turned, attempting to expunge 𝗵𝗃, I saw he was right. Izuku Midoriya, flying straight at us, overcoming the minefield in an instant. In no time at all, Midoriya blew dust in their eyes, and now he's cleared the landmine area entirely. Damn it, Eraserhead, your class is insane. What are you teaching them? I didn't do anything. This is all the fruit of the fires they lit in each other. Fire, right. Minute or no 𝗵𝗃, I have to move. I have to. Whoever could have predicted this outcome when the trial began? The one who returned to HDE Stadium is none other than 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗏. His will be a name to know. I can't believe it. I stumbled into the stage, feeling like I was about to throw up. 2 birds with 1 stone, floated the little monster on my back. I'm a genius. You're the worst, I moaned. 17th place, so far behind. Midoriya, that strange little classmate of mine, the last place student in the first test our class had taken, had beaten me. Todoroki, the second placer in that test and the recommendations, was in second, and 15 others ahead of me. It's 𝗵𝗃's fault. That's all. I didn't fail, did I? Midnight announced. The 42 at the top have earned the right to advance. I'm sorry for the kids who failed, but take heart. The festival's showstopper is still being prepared. And now for the post-preliminaries, the final selection. From here on out, even the press corps will team in a white heat of excitement, so go all out. Now then, on to today's heart-pounding second event. I already know what it will be, but the suspense is killing me. And what will it be? Behold, the sign displayed said human cavalry battle. You can all form 2-4-person teams freely and form a horseback configuration. Basically, it's the same rules as a normal human cavalry battle. Swipe enemy riders' headbands and guard your own, except for one thing. Everyone will receive points based on their performance in the last trial, which means the point value of each team will change based on who's in it, said Ishido. Don't interrupt, yelled Midnight. But yes, that's right. And the number of points you're worth will be 5 points if you placed 42nd, 10 if you placed 41st, 15th for 40th, and so on, with the exception of first place, whose head is worth 10 million. As if a collective whole, we all turned to look at him at these words. If you were to head for him, this will be the chance for the rest to supplant him. Midoriya looked absolutely terrified, sweating and nervous as though hit just now with the pressure of being number one. Those who reach TH top merely encounter fresh new hardships, and the kids who have enrolled here will hear it countless times. Plus ultra. The time limit is 15 minutes. The point value of each group's headband is worth the total point accumulation of each of the horse's members. The one to wear the headband will be the rider. Think of them as a standard bearer. Until time is up, you'll all be fighting and stealing as many of each other's headbands as you can. You may not equip your headband on any area besides above your neck. As more and more headbands are taken, maintaining control of the situation will become more and more demanding. And the most important aspect of the game is that even if you should lose your headband or break configuration, you're still not out of the game. So that means, I murmured to Sato, who was standing beside me, that with 42 contestants, around 10-12 horses will be on the field the entire time. Quirks are of course allowed, continued Midnight, so I want to see some fine brutality out there. That being said, this is still just a human cavalry game. If you attack any other group to break them up on purpose, that's a read card and you'll be forced to sit out the rest of the game. All right, you now have 15 minutes. Start your team-ups. I started calculating. Had to do well at this round. Had to find my own team to lead. Yaoyorozu, said Todoroki, approaching me. Are you taken? No, I told him. It was gratifying to be sought for, though I rather suspected Todoroki would want to be the team leader himself. I would be honored to join your team, Todoroki. He immediately turned away, having gotten what he wanted, and headed for Kaminari. Join me, he told him. Kaminari grinned and ran over to me. Yaoyorozu, hey, we're on the same team again. Before I could ask Todoroki who we should be thinking of picking for the fourth, he'd already headed over to ask who agreed. And again, before I could give any suggestion, Todoroki had gathered us together and was talking about his strategy. The reason I chose all of you is because I think this is the battle formation with the best balance. Kaminari, you're on the left. You'll send out some sparks to make sure the enemy never gets too close. Yaoyorozu, you're on the right. You'll be making us an insulator sheet, plus whatever defense and mobility you can provide. Ada, you're at the front with your engine power. You'll be our physical defense as well. As he said all this, it occurred to me that Todoroki hadn't chosen me because of my skills, but simply to use my quirk, and that he was going to be our team leader, no matter what I said or thought. And Todoroki, you can feint your attacks by using either ice or heat, right? Asked Ida. No, said Todoroki, looking into the stands. While in combat, I'll never ever use my left side. As we spoke, a voice called out Ida's name, the familiar voice from Midoriya. He had joined up with Uraraka already, and didn't seem to realize Ida was already taken. Ida would perhaps, from his perspective, prove useful for his speed, but as he returned to my team, it wasn't clear what else Midoriya was going to do. Now time's up. Raise your war cries and fire HD's signal, boomed Mike's voice. Let's start the countdown. 3. We'd assembled. I was the left horse, supporting Todoroki hand in hand with Ida. Todoroki's eyes were squarely on the main target. The only target, Team Midoriya. He'd added Takoyami, the boy with the dark shadow quirk, and a girl I didn't recognize from another class, to complete his horse. 2, 1, go. An all-out rush began towards Team Midoriya. Every team in the yard was targeting him all at once. Now, asked Kaminari. Wait, said Todoroki. As we watched, just like I'd predicted, Team Midoriya took off and was airborne, though assisted by the support gear, as well as by Uraraka's float quirk. Thanks to Dark Shadow, there was pretty much no touching them. They landed and were assaulted again, parried, moved, dodged, went airborne again, only to dodge an attack from Bakugo. Once again, Dark Shadow countered. Havaluk, ladies and gentlemen. Not even 2 minutes have elapsed and already we have a melee of tumultuous proportions on our hands. Anywhere you rest your eyes, There's two teams vying for and stealing each other's headbands. After all, it's a fine strategy to aim for 2ND to 4th place instead of the big 10 million. That's right, whether it's the first place who's being chased, row the rest of Class A. Now doing the chasing this here's a veritable congregation of top dogs. Let's briefly confirm that by checking their point values. There was a gasp. Whoa, damn, just 1 gash second. You mean Class A aren't taking it by a mile? Well, apart 𝗵𝗃𝗻𝗲 and 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗁 what happened? Time now, then. Time for us to enact a longer scheme. Our team had cornered 𝗵𝗃𝗻𝗲. Guess we won't be getting such an easy ride after all. Huh, murmured 𝗵𝗃𝗻𝗲 as we faced each other off. The time has come, said 𝗳𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏. I'll be taking that. In the midst of Class B's ascendance, the title fight comes to the fore, upon whose head shall rest those 10 million points, called out Mike. The other teams were helpless. We'd be snagging 𝗵𝗃𝗻𝗲's headband. I'm going to overtake you too, I thought. 𝗳𝗏, said 𝗳𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏. Advance. Got it, he replied. Yaoyorozu, he told me. Prepare our guard and conductor. On it, I said, readying the same shield I'd used for 𝗵𝗏𝗻𝗲's attack before. 𝗵𝗏𝗻𝗲, 𝗳𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 finished. Yeah, man, I know, he said with a grin. Hang tight. Guarded by the shield, we were blocked from the indiscriminate discharge, which was released all around us to freeze the surrounding teams in place, the others heading for Team 𝗵𝗃𝗻𝗲. Unfortunately, Takoyami's Dark Shadow was able to guard their team from the discharge, preventing the plan from working quite perfectly. There's less than 6 minutes left on the clock, 𝗳𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 said as I handed him the grounding rod I created for the completion of our plan. There's no going back. Dangerous for the other teams. They were still people and classmates after all. Sorry about this. Just endure it for a little while, said 𝗳𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 as he unleashed his ice to the ground along the creation I'd handed him, a long pole. We were wearing skates to prevent us from being electrocuted or frozen. What's this? Announced Mike. 𝗳𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 held back the mob of horses in one fell swoop. He used 𝗵𝗏𝗻𝗲𝗲's electricity to stop everyone firmly in their tracks so he could be sure to freeze them all, chimed in Mr. Aizawa. He's looking back on the obstacle race, where too many were able to dodge his ice for his liking. Nice commentary, called Mike. We 𝗧𝗱𝗱 in past the other teams and 𝗳𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 swiped another headband from someone in Class 1B. I'll be taking these, he commented as we headed towards Team 𝗵𝗃𝗻𝗲. Dark Shadow went on the offensive attack, swooping in towards us. Yaoyorozu, said 𝗳𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏. I was already on it, throwing up a shield in the way of the creature's hands, just in time to stop it. From a distance, it looked like 𝗵𝗃𝗻𝗲 was starting to get nervous. The ice around us provided an excellent barrier, meaning that nobody could get in. We were the only team that could end up with the 10 million. Down to just the two of us now. We headed forward towards him. He moved then, suddenly with confidence, to the left. There's only about a minute left, and 𝗳𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 has set HDE field. All that's left now is taking those 10 million points. It'll be swiped in an instant. Or so I might have thought 5 minutes ago. But 𝗵𝗃𝗻𝗲 has kept away during all that time, even in this constricted space. Again we moved, and again, infuriatingly, 𝗵𝗃𝗻𝗲 moved out of range. He's got us, I thought with annoyance. I couldn't think of a way around it. Dark Shadow could block my or 𝗵𝗏𝗻𝗲𝗲's attacks. Keeping to the left meant that 𝗳𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 couldn't use his ice without hitting 𝗳𝗏, and he'd already declared he wouldn't use his fire. We were running out of time. Guys, said 𝗳𝗏, we have less than a minute. I'm afraid I'll be useless after this, so I'm counting on you. 𝗳𝗏, said 𝗳𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏. Hold on tight, he said. Take it, 𝗳𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏. Torque over 𝗳𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃. A sudden jet of speed from 𝗳𝗏's engines caused us to move faster than I had ever been moved in my life, faster than I had thought possible before this. We flew past 𝗵𝗃𝗻𝗲𝗏's team and 𝗳𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 snatched the headband from him in an instant. We sped to a halt like a car. What happened? In an instant. Why didn't use that speed in the prelims? Said Mike, and agreeing with him I asked what was that. I can forcibly rev up my torque to explosive proportions if need be, said 𝗳𝗏. However, as kickback, I'll suffer from engine stall in short order. That was the trick up my sleeve I had never told my classmates. He turned to smile at Team 𝗵𝗃𝗻𝗲. I thought I told you. 𝗵𝗃𝗻𝗲, he called out, I'm challenging you. Mike announced the back and forth has ended and the one having the last laugh is Team 𝗳𝗏𝗃𝗃 with the 10 million. And 𝗵𝗃𝗻𝗲 has crashed down to 0. 𝗵𝗃𝗻𝗲 wasn't standing still. His team was running towards us, and I remembered what 𝗳𝗏 had said, that he couldn't move after using this special move. We were stuck in place. We had all the headbands, and we couldn't move anymore. 𝗵𝗃𝗻𝗲 was heading for us at an unprecedented speed and had lifted his arm. He was going to use his power. Fire off a power strong enough to wreck a building straight to 𝗳𝗏𝗃𝗃, and I couldn't move fast enough to prevent it. But he didn't use the full force, rather, simply swiped at the air in front of 𝗳𝗏𝗃𝗃 to break his defense, and grabbed at the headband on top, probably guessing that was his lost 10 million. How naive. They sped past us to a halt. Pull yourself together, 𝗳𝗏𝗃𝗃, 𝗳𝗏 said. That was too close. Midoriya was looking down dumbstruck at the false headband he was holding. We switched the order, just in case, I told him. That was naive, Midoriya. It's nearly over. Now for the countdown. Everybody say hey, cried Mike's voice. As the countdown began, Midoriya was headed for us once again. 10, 9, 8. Blasting through the other side of the ice came Team Bakugo. 7, 6. I threw up a guard for the electricity as Team Midoriya flew our way again. 5, 4. Midoriya headed for us once more. I had to make something new. Takoyami kept blocking. No more time. 3, 2, 1. Time up. At last, we could breathe again. Now shall we see who our top 4 are? In first place, Team Todoroki. In second place, Team Bakugo. In third place, Team Tetsu. Wait, hey, it's Team 𝐻INSO. And in fourth place, Team Midoriya. I wasn't entirely sure how that had happened. It seemed Takoyami had used the space Midoriya made to snatch a headband we'd stolen earlier, entering into fourth place. The first 4 teams will move on to the final event. Now step forward. The event will be after an hour's lunch break. See you Chen. I headed with Kaminari and Ida back towards the lunchroom. Uraraka cornered Ida, looking annoyed. Ida, that super duper speed was sneaky. What's sneaky? It's simply not in the manual, that's all. I just wanted to be a proper rival to Midoriya. I guess that's what guys do. Where is Midoriya? I mean, Deku, she said, looking around. Midoriya had indeed disappeared. And Todoroki along with him. Remembering the earlier challenge, I suppose they'd gone off somewhere together. I joined up with Jiro in the cafeteria to sit down for lunch. Then Kaminari and Minto appeared, looking kinda serious. They said all the girls need to go do the cheering battle, said Minto urgently. I haven't heard anything about that, I said, feeling confused. You're free not to believe us if you don't want to, said Kaminari, looking worried. But this comes directly from Mr. Aizawa. The other girls were gathered at a table alongside Ida. We rushed to inform them. According to Kaminari, Mr. Aizawa says the girls have to participate in a special event, I told them. All dressed up in cheerleader gear and ready to go. Us girls of class A gathered outside, prepared to deal with this new, bizarre twist. Huh, what's this? Cried Mike's voice. What happened, Class A? At that it dawned on us all what was happening. Minto, Kaminari. I screamed at them. You tricked us, didn't you? My knees gave out and Uraraka patted my shoulder gently. They really are idiots, said Jiro, blushing in humiliation. Well, we might as well do it until the true battle begins, said Hagakure. It's fine, isn't it? She continued as she practiced a cheer. Toru, you actually like this, don't you? Said Sue. All right everyone, compete your hearts out. Recreation, said Mike. And after that the final event. From the 4 teams, 16 individuals have made it through. It's a tournament. We're pitting them against each other in one-on-one combat. So it's a tournament, huh? Said Kirishima. We'll be standing on the same stage we see on TV every year. Oh, was it a tournament last year, too? Said Mina. The system changes a bit each year, said Ciro. But typically there'll be similar one-on-one competitions. Last year it was more of a sports Chanbara style event. All right, said Midnight. Now I'll determine who fights whom through this lottery. Once the matchups are decided, we'll do a fun bit of recreation and then we'll commence. Whether or not the 16 who will be competing want to join in on the recreation activities is up to you, since I'm sure many of you will be wanting to take a breather or preserve your strength. So starting from the team that placed first, let's determine the order. Excuse me, sorry, said Ajiro, raising his hand. I'm sitting this one out. Ajiro, why? Cried everyone. This is the place to show yourself off to the pros. Truth is, I don't remember anything that happened during the human cavalry battle up until the very last seconds, he admitted. Probably due to that guy's quirk, the guy who'd been leading his team. I know it's my big chance, and I know it's stupid to throw it away, he continued. But this is the place everyone earned by clashing at their full power. I wouldn't feel right standing among you without even understanding how I got here. I just can't do it. Don't worry about it, said Hagakure. As long as you get results at this stage, it's fine. Yeah, it's not as though I put in the most stellar performance either, said Mina. You don't understand, said Anjiro. This is my pride we're talking about here. I can't stand the thought of it. Also, why are you girls dressed like cheerleaders? I don't remember what happened either, said a boy from Class B. I want to abstain too. No matter how strong he may actually be, for a person who didn't so anything to rise up would defeat the point of the festival. Man, you guys are super manly, said Kirishima. How callow, said Midnight. I'll have you know that greenhorns like you get all my love. I hereby recognize Shota and Ajiro pulling out. 2 kids from Class B transferred in, and with 16, the matches were released. My match for the first round would be against Takoyami. I'd had a good preview of that dark shadow quirk during the preliminaries, and couldn't help but be a little nervous. My opposing round was between Ashido and Aoyama, and I had a good inkling that she would be the winner in that bout. If I won, when I won, I told myself I would face her, then one out of Kirishima, a Class 1B student, Uraraka or Bakugo ... most likely Bakugo, I thought, realistically speaking. Winning against him would probably be a matter of shielding from his explosions and creating something to block him. On the other side then, the strongest out of those entering in that group were Midoriya, Todoroki and my best guess was that Todoroki would win there, so if I was able to beat Bakugo and Tokoyami, then perhaps I could face off against him in the finals. My mind went on concocting all possible permeations of my future fights and trying to think up counter strategies. Okay, let's put the tournament on hold for a moment and enjoy some recreation. Even though he said that, it was hard not to feel really stressed. Even cheering with the other girls wasn't really enough to calm me down. Hey guys, are you ready? We've got a bunch in store for you. It's here that you will brawl. Came Mike's commentary. We all gathered in the bleachers. The first match was between the guy with the mind-wiping quirk and Midoriya. What's with that face? You did well up to now, didn't you? Hero course Izuku Midoriya. You haven't done anything notable yet. General education, Hitoshi Shinsu. The rules are simple. The scuffle is won by ringing your opponent out, rendering them unable to move, or getting them to say I give. Feel free to wound. We have Recovery Girl waiting in Tay Wings. I hope you've left your sense of morals at the door, though you're not allowed to endanger each other's lives. Now let's start. As soon as he started, Midoriya said something to the brain wipe guy and then just stopped moving. As soon as HTE match opened, Midoriya came to a stop. He isn't moving an inch. He's just standing there gaping like a moron. Could it be Shinsu's quirk at play? Even though he hasn't made any impression at all up until now, could it be that he's scary? That's why I've been saying that the entrance exam is illogical, commented Mr. Aizawa. Looking at their data, I pulled their files. Shins failed the practical skills exam, but since he applied for the general department, he probably expected as much. So, despite the fact that his quirk is a force to be reckoned with, he couldn't earn any points due to its particular rules. Whatever Shinso said to Midoriya next, Midoriya turned around to walk out of the ring. 𝗵𝗃𝗄𝐴. How meek. As we watched in shock, Midoriya walked inexorably towards the edge of the ring, about to just walk out. But then, out of nowhere, a giant blast of wind came gushing out of his hand, leaving his fingers broken, and Midoriya stopping just short of watching out. But the Midoriya, he came to a halt. Holy crap, said Ajiro, who was sitting next to me. Shinso looked freaked out, but Midoriya had clapped his hand to his mouth to avoid answering him again. From the looks of things, he had to reply to something Shinso said in order to be taken under control. Midoriya ran forward towards Shinso then, and started shoving him straight out of the ring. Shinso started punching him and struggling to push him back. But then Midoriya turned around, grabbed him and judo tossed him over his head like he'd done against Bakugo in the battle trial arc. SHINSOU's out of bounds, announced Midnight. Midoriya, you advanced to round 2. Bit of a no-frills battle to start the tournament off. But clap your hands and give these two a round of applause. You fought well, boys. Midoriya seemed to be asking Shinso something. But of course none of us could hear him. Still, it looked like Shinsu had been able to impress the scouts anyway. The next match would be Todoroki versus 𝗧𝗏. This seemed like a rather uneven matchup to me, though one could never say never. Sorry to keep you waiting, folks. Next up it's Tace 2. He's turned in an excellent performance to make it this far, and yet what's with that plain face? Does it come off? Hand to 𝗧𝗏 the hero course versus the one who stands at HTE top of the top, almost too strong for his own good. From the same hero course, Shoto Todoroki. As soon as the start bell rang, 𝗧𝗏 threw tape at Todoroki, prepared to fling him out of bounds. A lightning quick surprise assault aiming for a ring out. Almost without a doubt the best choice he could have made. Give it your all, 𝗧𝗏. In a second, an iceberg towering over the top of the stadium wall consumed the entire ring. 𝗧𝗏, can you move? Asked Midnight. He must have answered no, because how could he say anything else? Don't mind, nice try, cheered those in the stands. Todoroki thought 𝗧𝗏 out of the iceberg as the stands did their best to console the latter. Is that how powerful he truly is? I thought to myself, impressive. But we're both recommended students, I reminded myself quickly. Even if he's been outdoing me so far, my match will be the time to show him up. Kaminari was up next, against a girl from Class 1B. Now comes the 3RD matchup. It's the assassin from Class 1B, 𝐈𝐵ARASHIOZAKI, versus the sparking killing boy, Denki Kaminari. Suddenly Shiozaki was interrupting Mike to tell him that she was not, in fact, an assassin. The match started and Kaminari went all out with a full charge, but Shiozaki blocked it with her vine hair and tied him up. It's over in a flash. I'll say it again, folks. It's done, not even a contest. So Shiozaki advances to the second round. That Kaminari really is dumb, I thought as he was led off. At least 𝗧𝗏 tried. Match 4, he's coming across like a center fielder. It's Tenya Ada of the hero course versus fully equipped gadget Dynamo. From the support course, 𝗵𝗃 is that a full array of support items on you too, 𝗧𝗐? Yeah, he was wearing some kinda jetpack. As a general rule, hero course students aren't allowed support items. You need to apply for permission beforehand, said Midnight. I forgot. Since Aoyama has his belt equipped, I thought it was okay. We could just barely hear 𝗧𝗐. Yes, since he applied for an exception, said Midnight. I apologize profusely, said 𝗧𝗐. However, my heart was moved by my opponent's sportsmanship. Even though she's from the support course, she said we should be on equal footing. So she gave me all these items. Her spirit, I would never look down on it. You're so green, said Midnight. Well, if they're both of the same mind, then I suppose it is permissible, said Aizawa. Though this seemed doubtful, 𝗧𝗐 started running and 𝗪𝗰 made an announcement. That acceleration, it's fantastic, assented 𝗧𝗐. I trust your legs feel lighter than usual. Well, I'll tell you why. It's because those leg ports are designed to follow in line with the motions of their wielder. But of course, evading is still easy as long as you've got this hydraulic attachment bar. She dodged him effortlessly. Now feel how beautifully you can shift directions, 𝗧𝗐. It's only possible through that lovely auto balancer. This went on for 10 whole minutes. Then 𝗪𝗰 stepped out of the ring. 𝗪𝗰 is out of bounds. 𝗧𝗐 advances, said Midnight. I got up and left for the preparation room after that, as my match would come next after Ishido's with Aoyama. My opponent would be Tokoyami. I thought back to the cavalry battle and what I'd seen of his quirk during the battle trial and at school. The trouble was that Dark Shadow didn't seem to have any weaknesses. The whistle blew and I headed out into the ring. This is your moment, Momo. Time to show them all what you can do. Offense and defense in one body, announced Mike, the Dark Samurai accompanied by Dark Shadow. From the hero course, it's 𝗵𝗃𝗄𝐺𝗂𝐺𝗂𝐿 versus all-purpose creation. She was admitted through recommendations, so her abilities are certified. From the hero course, Momo Yaoyorozu. What's more, he can call upon the creature instantly. If I can make a simple shield, I can block him. Of course, then 𝑠6th match start. Before I could even begin, Dark Shadow was coming straight at me. A simple shield was enough to block the incoming attack, though it caused me to stumble back a step. And again he was attacking. I can't focus on my quirk, I thought as he managed to knock the shield from my hand. I created a 𝗧𝗏 to block him out this time. He kept coming, and then halted for a moment. He stopped. This is my chance, I thought. A staff was easy to produce quickly, and I could start with my own form of offense. No way was he Yaoyorozu, called Midnight. You're out. My breath disappeared. I looked down in dawning horror. The last attack had pushed me out of bounds. A completely overwhelming victory. Is it possible that Dark Shadow is the greatest quirk ever? I lost. I didn't even do anything. It was over in an instant. Don't do it, I told my eyes, while all the cameras were watching as I walked back towards the recovery room. Once I was out of sight, the tears came. I couldn't believe it. After all that hard work, everything expected of me, the first opportunity to show the world what I was made of, and I'd failed in a mere moment. It was so humiliating. That's all. It's over. I'm out now, and nobody saw me achieve one noteworthy result. Even the cavalry battle, where I was in first place, was only due to 𝗧𝗐 and Todoroki's hard work. I'd done nothing special, nothing to stand out. Nobody watching was going to look at me and think that's the hero I want to work with. I'd failed in every possible way. The first round closed with Bakugo defeating Uraraka. The first match of the second round, then. And now for this go-round of the sports festival. Both competitors are at the top of their class, and the world ain't big enough for the both of them. Todoroki versus Midoriya. Todoroki, my fellow student under recommendations, facing off with that unexpectedly strong competitor Midoriya. While the odds were not in the latter's favor, he often had a trick or two up his sleeve. Start. Todoroki began with a full blast of ice straight at Midoriya. With the snap of a finger, Midoriya unleashed a pretty staggering amount of energy, smashing straight through the ice and blasting Todoroki back hard enough that if he hadn't set up an ice barrier behind himself, he would have indeed been blasted out of the ring. Midoriya's finger, from where we sat, was clearly broken. Oh, he broke right through, came Present Mike's cry. Yes, but he can't keep that up forever. He's only got a few more chances left. Once more, a smash, and the ice destroyed and blasted to bits, and another finger of Midoriya's broken. And there goes another, cried Mike. Midoriya was trembling in pain now, and Todoroki didn't seem to be slowing down at all. He blasted off at Midoriya again. And once again Midoriya blasted backwards. Damn, they started already, cried Kirishima as he joined us in the stands. Oh, Kirishima, heard you advanced to the second round, said Kaminari. That's right. And next up it's you against me, Bakugo, he grinned. I'll freaking kill you, snarled the latter. Huh, just try it. Though actually, both you and Todoroki can just blast out super huge range attacks willy-nilly, one after the other. Don't make light. I can't do it willy-nilly. Overwork your muscles, the muscle fibers will give. Run too long, run out of breath. Quirks are just functions of the body, so even those two must have limits. I hadn't really thought about it that way before. Whenever I overuse my power, it exhausts me from wearing out my fat stores, and therefore Todoroki must have some sort of limit too, as all-powerful as he seemed. But could Midoriya outlast him? Todoroki struck with ice, and again Midoriya countered. All the fingers on his right hand were done now. Todoroki responded by attacking with a true onslaught of overwhelming ice power, closing in. Todoroki closes in without so much as flinching from Midoriya's power, commented Mike. He jumped from the ice straight at Midoriya, ready to move fast enough to stop him from using that power again. Punched the ground and threw more ice at him as it started to cover his foot. He seemed cornered, and this time made a fist and used his whole arm. Everything was blasted out of bounds with an explosion. Todoroki just barely avoided a ring out with the ice, but now Midoriya's whole left arm was broken. One more ice blast would be enough to send him out of bounds, and Todoroki presses his relentless assault. Another freeze attack for the clinching. Smash. Todoroki was blasted back this time. Another blast from Midoriya, destroying the ice and nearly pushing Todoroki completely out of bounds. Midoriya had used an already broken finger. He seemed to be yelling something at Todoroki now. Todoroki started running at him, meaning to close the gap, seemingly enraged. Midoriya suddenly moved, warming up, winding up, and he punched Todoroki in the stomach, just enough to blast Todoroki across the ring. Ew, and a bitter blow on a brittle body. Bet you all felt that one. Todoroki, choking and coughing in pain, wrapped his hand around his stomach. Todoroki, I thought he threw another blast of ice at Midoriya, but not as strong as before, and Midoriya blasted again. Out of fingers. Too broken. No way he could do anything. Todoroki threw more ice at him once more, and Midoriya jammed his thumb inside his cheek and blasted off at him again. I recalled what Todoroki had said to us before during the cavalry battle, that during a fight, he would never use his left side. But from where we stood, it was starting to look like that decision would cost him the match. Both of us, I suppose, I thought wearily. Both recommendation students might be defeated here. Because of hesitation, Midoriya ran forward, screaming words we couldn't hear at Todoroki, headbutting him in the chest, punching him, throwing him back. Todoroki could barely begin to stagger to his feet now. It was slowly becoming a massacre on both sides, a bloody and violent beating with nothing rewarding. Then something Midoriya said seemed to strike him. Something changed, and then the fire came. Hi's left side was engulfed, flames licking his face and arm. SHOUTO. We could hear Endeavor screaming. So you finally accepted yourself, have you? Good, excellent. Now is your true beginning. You who holds my blood, surpass me, and realize my ambition in yourself. And Mr. Endeavor with a very sudden pep talk. Must be quite HD doting dad, came Mike's comment. It almost looked as though Todoroki was wiping away tears. Two unstoppable forces of energy so strong we could feel it in the stands blasted at each other with everything they had. The explosion destroyed all visibility. We couldn't even see them. The blast from both sides was so powerful. What's happening down there? I cried, as the force whipped our hair about our faces. What was that? What the hell even is your homeroom class, dude? The heat other cooled down air which then expanded. So that's how he made such a fiery wind blast. Damn, that's hot. And I can't see a thing. Just who won this match? The dust cleared a tiny gap, just enough to see Todoroki, his left uniform side completely burned away, still inside the ring, and Midoriya, slumping to the ground against the wall of the arena. Midoriya is out of bounds. Todoroki advances to the third round. Ida beat Shizaki and Tokoyami beat Ishido. Then Kirishima versus Bakugo, which actually started out fairly even. He countered. Looks like Bakugo can't land a hit against Kirishima's fierce swipes, announced Mike, as Kirishima kept absorbing Bakugo's. Then it connected, cried Mike as Bakugo finally succeeded in landing a hit on him, then kept on blasting like crazy until Kirishima had finally passed out, and Bakugo advances to the third round through a downright nasty carpet bombing. With this, the top four have assembled, called Mike. The semifinals were starting with Ida versus Todoroki. It's a BTTLE between two who both hail from elite hero families. Ida Tenya versus Shoto Todoroki. Start. Todoroki threw ice at Ida, who jumped out of the way with a standing long jump. He actually kicked Todoroki in the head, grabbed him and made to throw him out of bounds. Whoa, damn, that's a fast kick. That looked like one hell of a heavy blow, said Mike. But just when it looked like Todoroki might be beaten, Ida's engine stalled out cause he'd frozen him before, which we didn't even notice happening. Ida is unable to move, and without even using his flames, Todoroki advances to the final round. Mike concluded, and then Bakugo versus Tokoyami. Bakugo kept yelling and blowing up dark shadow. It's Bakugo versus Tokoyami, folks, and Bakugo's rush chase won't end. Up to this point, Tokoyami has been able to net win after win through his nearly invincible quirk, but now he's playing pure defense. He can't let him any closer. But why, Takoyami? Yelled Mina. During our fights he blew us out with a super attack. There must be some trigger, I murmured. Nearby, Ochako said he can't launch an attack against all the light given for by those explosions. This is the absolute worst matchup for him. If Kaken doesn't find out what he did about his weakness, then that's this match's tipping point, said Midoriya, who'd rejoined us after his surgery to see it as match. Bakugo jumped up behind Takoyami and used some giant blast of light towards Dark Shadow. It created an explosion that blocked everything out with smoke. I can't see through all the smoke. What happened? Who won? As the smoke cleared, we saw Bakugo standing over Takoyami and holding him down, while brandishing a handful of explosion like a weapon. Takoyami throws in the toll, and victory goes to Bakugo. And next, HTE finals will be settled with Todoroki versus Bakugo. Takoyami must feel just awful, said Ochako. So his weakness is light. I see in Bakugo. He really likes hitting those areas, said Kirishima. The time has come. The last battle. The top contender from UA's freshmen will be decided here. Final match, Todoroki versus Bakugo. Ready, start. Todoroki unleashed his usual giant ice wall right away. Right out of HTE gate with that. Is he put off by the idea of a close fight with Bakugo? Will the champion be decided that quickly? From inside the ice came blasting banging noises, and then Bakugo came banging out of the whole iceberg. He might have fended off Glacier with an explosion and dug his way out like some kind of mole. Damn, talk about strange skills. Bakugo went and blasted his way over Todoroki's head. He grabbed Todoroki's shirt and threw him across the ring. Todoroki just barely avoided getting wrung out by riding his ice like a surfer. He avoided a ring out with a wall of ice. Looks like fun. Bakugo attacked him again, and Todoroki grabbed him. Use it, came Endeavor's voice from the crowd. Todoroki tossed Bakugo away. It looked like they were arguing now, but Todoroki seemed to have practically given up now. Don't lose now. Come on, you can do it, yelled Midoriya at Todoroki from the front row. Hard to say if it was out of Todoroki's friendship or to antagonize Bakugo, or even to help out Bakugo, because it became clear later on that Bakugo was mad at Todoroki for holding back. Todoroki activated his fire side and Bakugo started prepping some giant attack. He added some rotation to the intensity of HT oversize explosion he used against Uraraka, becoming a true human explosive. But at DOESN seemed like Todoroki shot off a super whirlwind of fire like in the Midoriya match, but sure enough Todoroki'd been blasted out of bounds. Bakugo ran over to him, staggering to his feet first, and grabbed his shirt trying to get him to reply. Midnight knocked him out to stop him from antagonizing Todoroki, and declared that Bakugo was the winner now that Todoroki was out of bounds. And with that the competition is over. This year's UA Sports Festival freshman champion is Bakugo Katsuki of Class A. Now then, let's move on to the awards ceremony, announced Midnight, as 3 podiums sprung from the ground. What the hell's that? Jiru asked, staring. The middle one had a stake on top of it, and Bakugo was chained to it with his hands chained up and a gag in his mouth. He was riding in pure fury. Third place could have gone to Ada as well as Takoyami, but due to home life circumstances he was forced to leave early, so please understand, said Midnight. Time to confer the medals. And the one who'll present the medals this year is naturally none other than it is, and I am here with the medals, divided by our hero All Might, said Midnight and All Might together. He handed out medals to all 3 boys, even though Bakugo really didn't want to take his. And there you have it. This year, it's these 3. However, take heed folks, there was a chance for everyone in this arena to stand there. It's just as you saw with your very own eyes. Ladies and gentlemen, they competed and boosted each other up. Everyone climbing to ever high, advancing ever farther. The next generation of heroes will surely sprout from the seeds planted this day. And to that sentiment I'll add one more thing. Everybody say it with me now. And, great work, that was such a plus ultra moment, booed the crowd. We had the next day off. Sensei said that he'd organize all our nominations of the pros. Be sure to get in some rest. We got so much attention after the sports festival. In class next day everyone got to talking. I got so embarrassed. Everybody was staring at me so intently, said Hagakure. Yeah, me too, said Kirishima. I got consoled with don't mind calls by Friction Elementary School kids, said Siro. Don't mind, said Asui. We became the centers of attention for just one day. UA really is amazing. Morning, said Mr. Aizawa. Everyone scrambled back to our seats. Mr. Aizawa, I'm happy you were able to remove your bandages, said Asui. The old lady went crazy with her treatment, but let's put that aside. Today's hero informatics period is a little special. It's time to formulate your code names, your hero names. Everyone jumped to our feet. Oh my god, yes. Now this is making my chest swell. Mr. Aizawa continued. This is related to the draft nominations by pros I mentioned the other day. The nominations will truly start mattering only after you've gained some experience and your adaptable fighting ability OS judged during your sophomore and senior years. In other words, the nominations you're getting this year are more akin to expressions of interest in your future potential. And it's not rare that that interest dries up by graduation, or is simply unilaterally dropped, said I sighed. Damn grown-ups playing with our emotions, muttered 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗏. So I guess the nominations we received are like personal hurdles, then, said 𝐒𝐻𝐽𝐽𝐫. Yes. Now the tally of nominations is as follows, said Aizawa, pointing at the board. I didn't have as many as I'd wanted. Todoroki and Bakugo had the most. Damn, it's so clear it's practically black and white, said Kaminari. Those pros have no discerning eye, said Aoyama. Look though, first and second places are the reverse. Seeing him all straight-jacketed on the winner's stand must have scared him off, said 𝗧𝗏. Pros AI ain't gonna be scared, yelled Bakugo. Just as expected, Todoroki, I sighed, looking at him sadly. A lot of that's just gotta be because of my dad, he replied modestly. Based on this, regardless of whether or not you received any nominations, I'll be having you all go get some so-called workplace experience. Well, you've all dipped a toe in the world of the pros, unfortunately. But I think experiencing the activities of pros firsthand will prove to be more fruitful training than before, said Aizawa. And 'cause of that we need hero names, huh? Said Sato. Things have got fun all of a sudden, said Uraraka. Of course, placeholder names are fine too, but something appropriate, said Aizawa. Because if not it'll be hell from here, interrupted Midnight Sensei. The names you pick now, the names you come to be known by the world as now. In many cases they stay that way after becoming pros. Well, she is correct, said Aizawa. I'll be having Ms. Midnight evaluate your naming sense. The way your futures end up will approach the image projected by the names you choose. It's all down to that old phrase, names and natures often agree. For example, All Might. 15 minutes later, I was to present my name to the class, and I held it opus on the scorecard. I hope can live up to this name. The Everything Hero. I'm creative. Later on, after everyone had picked their names, Aizawa said, your workplace experience will last 1 week, and where you choose is essential. For those with nominations, I'll be handing out individualized lists, so choose from what's listed in yours. As for those who haven't received any nominations, these are 40 agencies that are offering places. I'll be having you choose from those among this list. I want them in by the weekend. We have 2 days, cried 𝗧𝗏. Day of departing for workplace experience. You all brought your costumes right. Normally you're prohibited from wearing them in public areas, so don't drop them, said Sensei. Got it, I called. Don't stretch out your 𝗳𝗏𝗧𝗏. Make the effort to be respectful. Now move it. I decided on an internship with 𝗬𝗵𝗲, the snake rescue hero, the highest ranked hero on my list. She was known for having a huge fanbase and being a skilled rescue hero. And accompanying me there was Itsuka Kendo from Class 1B, a tall and pretty redhead girl with a quirk called Big Fist. We were called to her dressing room in hero costumes. And that's how it is. Plus, we're allowed to have side jobs as well. I hear of people who, in the days, it was all determined by official duties, and quite some trouble, but these days you can get a big push from your popularity with civilians and how in demand you are with them. To that end, I actually have a commercial to film now. Why don't you get to know each other? Kendo sighed a little. But I wanted to go experience more, heroic things. No, I cried. This, too, is a path one cannot avoid if one aims to become a pro. Besides, she has graciously taken a look at me, who has been bereft of good points. I shall have her allow me to study under her a great deal indeed. Damn girl, you're going all out. Do you want to know why I hired you? Said Miss 𝗬𝗵𝗲, turning to us with a smile. Because you saw true heroic potential in us. I cried. Of course I did. But there's another reason. She smiled knowingly. You're both very cute young ladies. Huh? And before we knew it, we were both in a commercial for hairspray products, being filmed and scrutinized by cameramen. Wave up your hair with just one spray. Do the wave with coil hairspray today. Afterwards, in her dressing room, 𝗬𝗵𝗲 smiled. Well, that was quick work. But this is just a demo, so it'll be broadcast as a commercial in about a month or so. All right girls, shall we go out on patrol? And now we're on TV, mused Kendo. Heroes, we're heroes, I muttered over and over to myself, trying my best to be optimistic. This will be helpful, won't it? But when a weekend passed and nothing more hero-like occurred, I began to feel quite certain that my internship, so long looked forward to, had ended up as a complete waste of time. Chapter: the week before our internships had started, the news had reported about how a villain known as the Hero Killer Stain had attacked and crippled Ida's older brother, the pro-hero Ingenium in Hasu City, Tokyo. During our internships, I received a group text from Midoriya showing a location in Hasu, and nothing else. Later it came out that Midoriya, Ida, and Todoroki had all encountered the villain, who'd been stopped by Endeavor. There was no information in the newspaper, however, about whether they were all right, and so I spent the last few days trying not to worry about them. Another encounter with a villain, in only a month. They must have been so frightened. Ida and Midoriya, who had beaten me as class representatives ... and Todoroki, who had beaten me in every possible way ... They might have my rivals, but I certainly still cared about them and didn't like the idea that they may have been hurt. Our classmates were discussing their internships, but I could only watch those three. They had gathered together at Todoroki's desk and were discussing, in hushed voices, the events in 𝐻𝗂𝗂. I didn't like to butt in, so I said nothing, until Kaminari turned the general subject to the three of them. You know, the ones who have transformed the most would be those three. The hero killer, fried Hantashiro. WH was being manhandled by Bakugo along with Kirishima. At least you three are okay. Fried the latter. I was so worried, I murmured, looking at Todoroki. He wore his usual inscrutable expression. Lucky Endeavor came in and saved you guys. That's the number 2 hero for you. At this, Todoroki looked down rather unhappily. Yeah, we were rescued. Oh, right. Endeavor is Todoroki's father, and they don't exactly get along. I saw it on the news, continued Ojiro. Something about the hero killer and the League of Villains being connected. Imagine if a really scary guy like that had showed up at USJ. He's pretty scary, sure, said Denki Kaminari. But did you see that video, Ojiro? I dunno if it was his single-track mind or tenacity, but don't you think he's kinda cool? It was hard not to be appealed at the look on Todoroki and Ida's faces at these words. Do you have no tact whatsoever, Kaminari? Kaminari, fried Midoriya. At these words he jumped and placed his hand on his face. Oh, Ida, I'm so sorry. It's all right, said Ida. He was certainly a man of conviction, so I understand if people find him cool. However, he chose to advance his cause by means of a purge. And whatever beliefs you may hold, that alone is in error. And so, in order that people like me may not hereafter multiply, I shall proceed down the path towards being a hero anew. And just like that, he was back to his usual moves, ordering the class and calling me, the deputy rep, to order. Our exercise in class that day was a training session with all might, in a brand new stage that looked like a huge mess of pipes, buildings, and construction equipment. IAMHERE ... is the note I usually start on. But right, on to foundational hero study time. Boomed our teacher. It's been a while, boys and girls. In good spirits, I hope. That was a really lukewarm entry. After so long, too. He must have run out of shticks, a few of our classmates muttered. Right, on the heels of all your workplace experience. This time we'll do something playful, said Sensei, muttering back, run out. Never. My supply of shticks is inexhaustible. Then, back to business. It's a rescue training race. Shouldn't rescue training be conducted at USJ? Ada called back in his usual over-serious tone. No, that place is for disaster rescue. What was I saying? This is a race. This place is training ground Gamma, where densely packed lanes make this construction site seem more like a complex labyrinth. Make 4 groups of 5. We'll done the training 1 group at a time. When I've given the distress signal somewhere in the area, you all simultaneously start form the outside limits. This is a competition to see who can get to me first. Of course, keep damage to the surrounding buildings at a minimum, he finished, pointing at Bakugo, who snarled back, stop pointing at me. The first 5 up were Midoriya, Ojiro, Ada, Mina, and Zero. Our classmates were soon taking all bets on who'd get in first. Ada hasn't made a complete recovery yet. He should just sit this one out. All the kids with the most maneuverability in the class are in that group. Yeah, but I'd say Midoriya's at a slight disadvantage here, I reasoned. Yeah, I'm not really sold on his power yet, said Jiro. With a nod, I concurred. I mean, whenever he tries anything he gets hurt. I'd say Zero takes first, said Kirishima. I'm betting on Ojiro, said Kaminari. I say Ashido. Her reflexes are nuts, said Mainta, predictably. Bakugo chimed in, Deku's dead last. He has that wound handicapping him, said Uraraka, but I still feel like it'll be it. Start, blared over the phone. Zero went jumping out ahead of everyone else, flying over the buildings with ease. See, look, it makes sense to be above everyone else, said the triumphant Kirishima. But suddenly Zero was surpassed by a blur, speeding through the air above buildings and jumping from rooftop to rooftop. It was Midoriya. Everyone cried out. He jumped from rooftop to rooftop, bouncing around without breaking a single bone. Midoriya, of all people, how did he do that in a single week? Todoroki was in the second group, and won too, with relative ease. I was in the third, and despite my best efforts, I was beaten. Of course I was. There's no way I could have actually won. I haven't done anything great in that regard. It's just not a strength of mine. Physical, practical skills. Everything I try, I just mess up. Thoughts like those had become more and more common with me as time went on. As we changed in the locker room, I couldn't seem to shake them. The wall, the obnoxious tones of Mainta, somehow having located a peephole, could be heard as he described just what parts of each of our bodies he wanted to touch. Fortunately, Kyoka had heard him and stabbed straight through the hole into his eye. Thanks, Kyoka, said Hagakure. How despicable. I cried, humiliated and angry. Let's plug up this hole immediately. One humiliation after another lately. In homeroom the next morning, Sensei told us summer break is fast approaching. Of course, we can't just let you relax an entire month. We'll be going to a summer break forest lodge. Everyone started cheering, me included. Truth or dare, squealed Mina, fist pumping. So you added fireworks, and it a curry. So much fun. However, Sensei silenced us with a glare. Should any of you fall short of a passing grade for the end-of-term test, then you're stuck in remedial hell. Let's do our best. Everyone, Kirishima called out. Our summer training camp. Another opportunity to get better, to surpass our limits. If I could just scrape by the practical, somehow. Chapter. We had reached the final week of June, with only a single week remaining before our final exams. I haven't studied at LLL, cried poor Ishido and Kaminari, who both looked nearly in tears. With the sports festival and internships, I didn't have time to study, moaned Kaminari, clutching his head while Ishido laughed rather manically. Sucks that there's a practical portion too, sighed Minta, who had been 9th out of 20. I thought you were one of us, cried Ishido. Guys like you are only likable when they're morons, added Kaminari. Who's gonna love you now? The world, I guess, Minta replied. Ishido, Kaminari, piped in Midoriya. Let's do our best. It'd be great if we could all go to the lodge, right? Yes, added Ida, if you just attend classes. It's hard to fail, Todoroki added. Words can hurt, you know, cried Kaminari, who was now clutching his chest in a real panic. Hey, you two, I intervened, as a thought occurred. I might be able to help you with the classroom stuff. Yeah, Momo, they cried out. Under my breath, I murmured, the practical, not so much. I'd hoped nobody would hear me, though through the corner of my eyes I thought I could sense Todoroki watching me. Jiru's soothing voice piped in as she approached my desk. I'm not as bad off as either of them, but how about helping me too? I'm having trouble with quadratic functions. Me too, asked Zero. I'm struggling with classical lit. Me too, added Onjiro. This is wonderful, I cried, deeply touched by all their requests for help. Yes, let's do it. We'll hold a study session at my residence over the weekend. I'll call Mother and have her prepare the great hall to set up. It'll be the perfect spot. What kind of tea does everyone like? I'll have her make sure we're stocked. In my family, we always drink 𝗂𝗧𝗏 or Wedgwood, so if you have any other preference, let me know. When we're finished, you'll all be model students. They looked a little unsure, but I just knew I'd be able to show them how helpful I could be, with the academic part, at least. Our study sessions commenced that weekend. They were grueling and challenging, but by the time they were finished I felt I'd been of some real assistance to my classmate. Ishido and Kaminari gave me a thumbs up once they were over, feeling they had most likely passed. At last, it was the day of the practical exam. Right, the text exercise will begin shortly, said Sensei, who was standing around with every one of our sensei, all the teachers. Obviously you can fail this test, too, so if you want to head to the first lodge, don't make any mistakes. Why are all the teachers here? Jiru asked, with a raised eyebrow. I've no doubt you've all learned what information you could about the test beforehand, said Sensei, so I think you already hold a vague notion of what you are to do. Just like the entrance exam, it will be robots, cried Kaminari. I can just see the fireworks, the curry, truth or dare, cheered Ishido. I'm afraid not, cried a strange voice from inside of Sensei's scarf. Principal Nezu jumped out. Due to various reasons, we're changing the test this year. What do you mean? I asked, trying to stay calm. Well, the principal explained, climbing down from Mr. Aizawa's scarf. It seemed they were afraid of a villain revival, so our sensei summarized. From now on, you'll focus our tests more on person-to-person battles, emphasizing a teaching environment as close as possible to a real battle. Which means that from here on you will all form pairs and engage in one-on-one combat with one of these teachers, against a teacher, gasped Uraraka. Additionally, your partners and opponents have already been chosen. They were chosen at my discretion, beat on a combination of grades, familiarity, and skills. Here are the teacups. To begin with, Todoroki is with Yaoyorozu. Against me. I tried not to gasp out loud. Todoroki as a teammate, against Mr. Aizawa. I could barely hear the other matches. I was so consumed with nerves. Teaming up with Todoroki would be good for passing the exam. But if I messed up, that would mean I had messed up. The 10 teams will be starting in their respective stages simultaneously. The general outline of the test will be explained by each of the teachers you'll be battling. Your tea be transported by the campus bus. Time is precious, so get in them promptly. We were bussed over to a small fake city. Todoroki and I sat awkwardly in silence the whole time. When we got out, Sensei paused to explain the rules. 30 minutes to either handcuff Sensei or run to safety. If you find yourself overwhelmed by my power, running and calling for help may be your best option, Sensei told us. Todoroki, you of all people should know that. The other two as well. Other two, I wondered, glancing at Todoroki. who looked rather regretful. Something had certainly happened, it seemed, with himself, Midoriya and Ida during the Hasu incident that we didn't know about. But it wasn't time to worry about that.